Sometime during that night, I was no longer Bill, and I was flying through these colorful orbs. They were full of energy and information and joy, and they were all greeting me and reaching out with praise and appreciation. I never felt like that. I didn't know a human could feel like that. Just loved from every direction, and I felt like I'd been released from a hot, dark, stuffy closet that I'd been crammed into. One thing that was persistent was, how in the world did I fall for this illusion, this trick that I was this Bill Letson who had his whole story and likes and dislikes and family and plans for the future? None of that mattered. None of it had been real. It was like a game. And I was so grateful for the peace that comes with being unburdened with everything that all of us carry, these huge packages of fear and regret and anxiety. It's just absolutely crushing compared to what we really are.
Well, hello, Bill Letson. Welcome to the show. I am truly honored by you joining me and looking forward to our conversation. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling pretty good. Brad, thanks for having me.
Oh, good. Well, thanks for joining me. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of energy in this call for sure. So, I got to tell you, every week we bring powerful stories about life after death, awakening, and what it means to be human. And if that resonates with you, you'll love what's coming, because today I am joined by Bill Letson, a retired firefighter whose life took a profound turn during a flu outbreak in 1994. And what began as a routine emergency call ended in a near-death experience that catapulted him into realms filled with stars, joy, playful beings, and a love so intense it defied words. Now, he was shown a glimpse of who we really are, eternal, powerful, divine beings, and came back forever changed. His story is moving and funny and radically honest. This isn't your typical NDE. This is Bill Letson's cosmic tour through the beyond. And welcome, Bill. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That was a really nice introduction.
Yeah, well, I have seen your story and I just loved it for sure. It's very, very unique. And I was really looking forward to not only sharing the story with folks, but also after that, talking about how it really changed you and how your life is now and all the folks that come to you with the questions they ask and how you're helping them and then so much more. So if that's okay with you, we can go ahead and start and I can hand the microphone and the stage over to you for your story.
Yeah, my name's Bill Letson, and I was a fireman my whole life. I was a forest ranger, then I was a fireman. And I was with Santa Barbara County in the 90s, 94, working in Goleta. And the Beijing flu epidemic was rocking and rolling. And we were running lots of calls on patients. And one patient I got exposed to, I breathed her breath in, and she was super ill. And a couple days later, I was super ill, and it just spiraled out of control really fast. And I ended up in an ambulance in a hospital and severely dehydrated. And they gave me some medication that didn't work out very good, and I just keeled over. And about 3:30 in the afternoon, there was, a bunch of firemen in the room, my wife, and I was just gone. And my wife said that everybody flipped out. They came in, they Narcaned you a bunch of times to reverse the drugs. And, they couldn't get a blood pressure. The highest she heard was 40 over 0. So she said it was really quite exciting. And then you were stable, but you weren't coming back, and they sent you up to intensive care. And I was up there all night, just hovering at death's door with this super low blood pressure, and then I had this experience. And sometime during that night, as best as I can tell, is I just found myself, I was no longer Bill, and I was flying through these stars, these colorful orbs. They were full of energy and information and joy and welcoming, and they were just parting like the look at the Star Trek video screen that when they fly through space. It was just moving through them, not super fast, but and they were parting, and it was like they were all greeting me and reaching out with praise and appreciation, and I never felt like that. I didn't know a human could feel like that. Just loved from every direction. And as I was flying along, I felt like I'd been released from a hot, dark, stuffy closet that I'd been crammed into. And I was this huge expanded cloud, this huge awareness. And I was floating along and everything was perfect. I didn't have any questions. But one thing that was persistent was in my thoughts was, how in the world did I forget who I really was? How did I fall for this illusion, this trick that I was this dude? I was this Bill Letson who had his whole story and likes and dislikes and family and plans for the future. None of that, none of that mattered. None of it had been real. It was like a game or an illusion that we play. And I was so grateful for the peace that comes with being unburdened with everything that we carry. All of us carry these huge packages of fear and regret and anxiety. It's just absolutely crushing compared to what we really are. And as I flew along, I felt, I said this every time, so I'm going to stay with it because it's meaningful. It'll come out in the future, but it's a meaningful statement, and it felt like a cosmic orgasm. There was so much happiness and joy and peace. It was overwhelming. And it absolutely felt like somebody was pouring honey on my brain, and it was running through every nerve, and it was just euphoria, steady state wave of euphoria. And if you listen for it, that's a lot of the NDEers are talking about this. They're telling you that this is there's so much peace and bliss that it's you can't believe it. So I was flying along saying, man, this is cool. I'm so happy I'm out of there. That was super hard. And I've always said this, that there was nothing super hard about my life. I wanted everything. Parents and girlfriend became my wife, and she's awesome my whole life, and family and sports and all my buddies and career. Everything was, I had to work, but it was enjoyable. Nothing horrific that a lot of people suffer with, family and addiction and stuff like that. So I was flying along, and I was like, man, it's so happy. I'm so glad to be home. This is so awesome. And there was this thing with the Akashic Records where I was seeing math and formulas and a lot of geometry and trig and stuff like that. It was just flying by, just all this information. And I was saying I could do this forever. And then there was this major shift, and I was in this facility. And it was a room. It was lit. I've always said indirect lighting, and there's a couple other NDEers that say that this thing about the lighting, that they couldn't find the appliances or the on-off switch. You were in the light, and the structure that you were in was made of light, and the beings that you were with were made of light. And I think that's what why I'm always compelled to talk about this indirect lighting thing, because there was no source of it. It was in everything. And I was in this white room, clinical. There was beds there, and there was tables and equipment, and there were beings there. There were these three short little hooded guys, and they looked exactly like those guys in the movie Communion. And they were overjoyed to see me. They were giggling and bouncing around and asking me questions like, how was it? What can you tell us? What did you learn? And, I wasn't fearful or anything, but it was just sort of astonishing that I was in this place with these separate beings. They had their own separate thing. And one of them came close, I was just sort of looking at him, and they thought that was really funny. And one came really close and looked me up and down and turned to the other two and said, he doesn't remember us. And they thought that was just hilarious. And they were giggling, laughing, and they looked just like those guys in the movie Communion. And, that movie has a lot of information about the other side for us when we're ready to see it. There's a lot of energy in the music that comes through in those movies, but if you turn the sound off and watch those little guys, they don't do anything frightful at all. They are, very loving. There's children in this facility in the movie, and they're high-fiving, Christopher Walken, and they're cool little guys, and that's exactly what I experienced. They were joyful and playful and to the point of mischievous. And then I, was watching them for a while, and they kept giggling and stuff. And I thought, this is a very bizarre place to be. And then this tall, wispy guy, and I've called him lots of things, like a walking stick insect, or like a vortex. He was this spinning energy, and I saw this recently. The best I've ever seen was in the movie What Dreams May Come, when Robin Williams dies, and then he encounters Cuba Gooding on the other side, and he's a guide or something. But there's this point where he comes forward, and he's like this, this, like, his face is like changing, and he's moving, and then he spins and spins away, like a whirling dervish. And I think that's what the whole whirling dervish is that we have this energetic spin to us in our state when we're at back in our home reality. And yeah, so there was a sliver of him, and he moved forward, and it was like he was underwater. I couldn't get a fix on him, and parts of him moved when he came forward, parts separated, and then it all caught up. And the whole time he was just smiling from ear to ear. He was just overjoyed to see me, chuckling the whole time. And I was just watching this, he was chuckling, and the little guys were bouncing around and giggling, and, there was a little bit of small talk, and then I just kind of said, well, I was thinking, I want to go back to where I was in that limitless place of energetic beings everywhere, and that sea of stars, of orbs. And so I said to him, well, because it didn't seem like there was anything going on. There didn't seem to be like there was any plan or anything. And I said, well, you guys want to do this life review or flash my life before my eyes or whatever that's about. You guys want to get started? And he just cracked up. The big, tall, wispy guy, he really cracked up. Like I was a little toddler trying to take over. And he said, sure, let's do that. How do you want to start? Just the sweetest guy ever. And I said, okay, that's cool. And so I just started telling stories about stuff in my life that it wasn't any big regrets. And it definitely wasn't the profound sort of life review where you realize how you've hurt others and you feel their pain and where you've helped others. There wasn't any of that. It was just me babbling. And after a while, he just said, okay, that's enough. Time to go back. And I mean, I'd forgotten about Bill, absolutely forgotten about Bill, had no intention of ever going back. My body was something, it was out of the question to go back into that, to get crammed back into that tube. And to me, it was like some kind of, organic waste. It was like a banana peel and had no connection to it at all, or to Bill, or to family. And I was like, go back. And it blew me away. And he says, yeah, you have to go back. You have things to do, and they're important. And I put up a fight, and I had a bunch of reasons. But it was clear that this was something that was serious, and I wasn't, to resist any further would have been undignified. And I just went with the flow, and he goes, okay, you're going back. And the whole room just started to come apart. It was a descending feeling, and he just sort of evaporated in front of me, and I dropped away into darkness. And just for your listeners, everyone here has woken up from a nap or in the morning, and they feel like they're falling. And that is a drop in frequency. You're coming back into this dense realm, this dense dimension where it is really hard on us. It's the most difficult thing compared to where we come from. And so people are looking for, I get a lot of calls, and people are looking for validation. And that's right there. Everybody has felt that. And it's a drop back into this dense physical form. So I was in a place, after I dropped away, I was near my body, but I was in a place that you did not want to be in. It was lonely, and it was dismal, and it was heavy, and it was a frightening place. And I didn't talk about that for a long time, but I think that's important to know that we are in a realm where, by raising our vibration with our choices, we earn our wings. We rise out of here by our own goodness, our own kindness. And I think that's what we're into here. And so then I was back into my body, and I woke up, and it was kind of a thing where the machines were waking me up. And the nurse came by, and she saw me sitting up, and she was shocked. She was like, "You're awake." And I'm like, "Yes, I am. I need to talk to you." And I was really upset. I was really pissed. I wanted an answer as to why I had to come back here. Why was I back here? And I told her, Bill had died. I was gone, and I was home, and I had bought the farm. And she had her hands on my shoulders and looking me right in the eye, and she said, "Honey, you were in escrow, but you fell out of escrow, and now you're back with us." And she emphasized, you're going to have to get your head around that. And that was the best thing anybody could ever have, because I was grounded by another human being, another soul in the physical. And, a lot of NDEers, you can hear their stories. They wander around for years wondering, what did I do to deserve this? Why can't I go home? And, that leads to all kinds of problems, relationships and addiction. And that grounding thing is super helpful. So, yeah, everybody came in, as the morning progressed, and the doctors came in. They all laughed at me, and my family came in, and I could see it in my mom's eyes. It's like, oh my goodness, he's a brain dead. He's lost his mind. Because I was a comatose thing for hours, and so you could tell I was upsetting her. So I stopped talking about it, and my wife was just shaking her head like, "What?" But I kept telling it, and I was home for a few days, and I was back to work, and everybody's like, "Hey man," the firemen were all like, "Hey man, everyone's talking about you had something happen. What happened?" And I said, "Sit down, I'll tell you." And engines would come from other stations, and I'd set up shop, and I'd tell them, um, and that got up to the chief's office, and pretty soon there's like, well, we need to set him up for a psych, and so the word was stop talking about it, and I understood, I got it, no hard feelings, and so I dummied up, and I zipped it for about 15 years, but a couple of guys called me. You get out on a brush fire, and it's late at night, and you're taking a break, and you're sitting on the fire line, sitting in the ashes, and somebody would talk about losing their dad or something like that, and then some old guy would say, "Hey, well, Letson's got this story," and so I would tell it, and since this all broke a few years ago, guys have called me, and they said, you had told that story when people drug it out of you in, critical moments, like a car accident, and some young people lost their lives or something like that. That would be part of my counseling, would be like, hey, look, everything's fine. It's all planned. It's all like a play or a movie, and nobody died. They just went home.
That is an amazing story. Just, I love the part where, you're on the other side. And like most NDEers, they feel that unconditional love. And I like how you describe it as a honey pouring down your brain and your entire nervous system. That people, can relate to and associate with. I can feel that. What was interesting is you said you couldn't believe that you ever thought you were Bill. How did you fall for that? So tell me, when you died and went to the other side, how did you figure out that you were dead and that you weren't Bill? And that was that. So what was that process like?
I was this huge expanded cloud. It felt like there was a cool breeze blowing through every atom. And I was this huge expanded awareness. And I was on my way somewhere, and I was moving through all of these welcoming stars. And, I think the process is rooted in this love and joy and acceptance, just this overwhelming homecoming that, it was just a knowing.
And so at that point, you didn't freak out or say, I'm dead. Oh no, what's going on? You just knew, well, this is better than what I had. And what I had felt real, but it's not real. But here I am.
It was a huge sigh of relief. It was oh my God, what was that? This place is really hard. Even if you've got it all, this place is really, really hard. The density of the emotions, and that's the whole universe, is our emotional choices. That's what's going on. Feelings. That's the real universe. And everything we have here that's physical, we just drop it away. Even our bodies, we just say goodbye to all of it.
Well, I like how the nurse kind of poked fun at your bought the farm by telling you were in escrow. Sorry, escrow fell through. You'll have to try again some other time and buy another farm, but now you're coming back.
Yeah, that was cool. It stuck. It really stuck.
It's almost like she's been through this before, and she, as a nurse in a critical care, has seen, this process, and she goes, yeah, you didn't complete the deal. I'm glad you're back. But she's experienced this before. The other thing I really liked about what you mentioned was you said that on the other side, and I've heard this many times, like there's no source of light, just light is emanating. So when you think about the world we live in, you have to have the sunshine or, your lights, and it bounces off you, and you get to, use your senses is to sense the reflection off someone. That's how you sense an object, not by actually sensing the object, but by sensing some source of light bouncing off of it. But you get to the other side, and that's not the deal. The things actually emanate light, almost like everything is a light source, but it doesn't hurt your eyes, and it's just amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And since then, I believe we come from, we are light. We're down here, cut off, and we come from the sun. And the sun passes by every day, and we grow food, and it holds the light, and we nourish our body and our soul with that food, if we eat the right food. And, we raise our vibration, and maybe we'll talk about this, but if we do all the right things, we can raise that vibration to where, historical miracles and things like that will be available to us because we're vibrating at our home frequency.
Yeah, I really like that. The sun, in this low density space we're living, it is the single source of light, and it nourishes not only us, the plants. We eat the plants, we get the nourishment of the light. We are light, but we're really in the dark right here. It's funny because now you think about that, you think about like a firefly or, those little things that do emanate light. It's like, wait a minute, is that a spiritual little bug? It's an interesting thing to think about. But, the notion of we are light and we are just pure energy, but we're really dimmed down on this side is really something, to really think about. When you were on the other side and the particular experience you had, you saw these little guys and then a tall, thin guy. Now, you mentioned a movie. Is it called Communion? Was that the movie?
Yeah, that movie's called Communion, and you can also watch The Wizard of Oz.
Tell us more about that.
Well, this just came to me in the last couple of years, but The Wizard of Oz is my NDE, basically. Dorothy, which means gift from God, this human experience. And she's in this drab place. It's black and white. It's dusty. A lot of mean people trying to take her dog and things, and lots of problems and stress. And she's kind of frustrated, this little girl, and she wants to go over the rainbow, that's back to the light that we talk about so much. And then the storm comes along, and she gets into the farmhouse, and the window comes off, and all this turmoil, and hits her in the head, and she falls on the bed. And from that point forward, she's in a near-death experience. They actually show this lighter version of her peeling away, coming away from her body that's on the bed still. And she gets up and she's walking around the house, and then the house lands in this place. The door opens, and this black and white movie turns into full color, which was new back in 1939. It's absolutely new. It blew the audience out of their seat, practically. And she goes out into all this color, and there's music playing on the air, and there's water blowing through this little town that she's in, and all these flowers and beautiful colors. And then here comes this giant orb, Glinda, which, is her higher self, her guardian angel. And Linda comes, and she's sort of amused by her, just like my tall, wispy guy was chuckling about me all the time. And Linda treats Dorothy very lovingly. And then these three little munchkins, the munchkins come out, and they're giggling, and they're playful, and they're kind of mischievous. And my favorite is the three little guys who are the Lollipop Guild. They come forward, and you could see they got this little snarl on their face. They're just these fun, loving little, whippersnappers. And that's absolutely what I experienced. And there was three of them. There was three of them in the Communion movie that approached Christopher Walken, and There's three of them that come in the ghost movie and drag the bad guy off to a realm that he won't be happy to be in. These messages are there everywhere that this is a reality of our circumstances here, that we're not judged. We earn our place in the afterlife by our frequency, by our actions, by our choices. And, we wonder, how is the world ever going to get better? Well, we're going to come to the realization that what we do here counts. Ethics and honesty and goodness and kindness, it counts. It's everything. And that's how the world climbs back to a new golden age.
And it sounds like that's what you had said earlier, something along the lines of we graduate based on our kindness.
Right, based on our vibration, our frequency. Everything is energy, frequency, vibration. And our emotions have a vibration, have a frequency.
What's your feelings there as folks, maybe they watch more of these podcasts and resonate with this material, talk directly with people like yourself? Each day in their life, their vibration feels like it's getting higher and they have unconditional love. How is their experience on this earthly plane going to play out over the next, year?
I think there's big changes coming, things that we can't even imagine. And soon, airwaves are going to light up with fear. And the only thing I'm doing is saying that we're mistaken if we're fearful of some of the things we see, because nothing I've seen, none of them have been demons or, horrible creatures that are out to do me harm. It's quite just the opposite. And perhaps that's because my nature is, maybe I have a high vibration, and I do believe we're all little fragments of the Creator. We're down here for the experience of our lives, and we are mini creators. And if our thoughts are dark and anger and jealousy and all that, then we will be creating that at the speed of thought on the other side. And here we've got weeks and months and years of screwing around to really mess our life up. And we can always change our thoughts.
That seems good, because on the other side, we're fully connected to love all the time. And so as soon as we make a decision, it's probably a pretty well thought through, meaningful decision, and we manifest instantly. Over here, we're so disconnected from love and kind of out in the cold, you can't trust any of the decisions we're going to make. Thank goodness they're not manifesting instantly, right? We take a little time to actually work through them. And over time, we probably tune our decision process that, hey, this seems to be better if I am of a higher frequency and of unconditional love, and so on.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. And, there's a lot of religions out there and spiritual groups, and, they all seem to be in their basis of this sort of kindness and do unto others as you'd have others do unto you. But then, some board of directors or something, turns the church into something else, some other thoughts of, fear-based or low-frequency based.
Do you have an impression that if you run into anything that is fear-based or negative or low energy, that you should be suspect?
Well, yeah, those things do exist here. Discernment is everything. And, to stay out of trouble, if you like we talked about, you eat fresh food and stay away from the processed stuff. Stay away from alcohol and drug use. Alcohol is a central nervous system depressant, and our whole experience is running through our central nervous system, our senses. That's the translation mechanism, and you're just tuning that down to all those low things like anger and jealousy. We all have addicted family members. They're always screwing up the family get-togethers because they're kind of permanently pissed off, and it's due to this alcohol.
And that would actually probably lead you to lower energy and maybe bad decision making. Pretty obvious there, yeah. And what do
Yeah,
you think now on the other side of the coin about sort of plant-based, items that you might eat that might influence your nervous system?
I think that's everything. Organic, um, freshly picked foods. And yeah, I do. Again, we go back to the sunlight. The sun is driving everything here. Without it, the whole system collapses. And that sunlight is captured in plants, and then we eat those green plants, and that light transfers into us. And you can just look at some of these people that are health advocates. They look amazing because of their diet. And the process in these days, processed food is some of the oils and stuff. They are toxic. They're almost rancid. Some of these cheap oils that are in a lot of foods.
Why do you think foods are so readily available that have such questionable ingredients?
I think it all goes back to we signed up for this. We came at this time. This is as hard as it gets. Any kind of conspiracy theory, I tell people, if they start down that road, go into the bathroom mirror and look at yourself and say, it's you. You put me here. And then, go from there. Like, I'm going to make better choices. I'm not going to go downtown, and throw rocks at police cars. I'm not going to do that. Even though that's where we're going, perhaps. I'm going to do something nice. I'm going to go to volunteer at the zoo, or I'm going to go to the homeless center and help cook and feed people.
Well, I like the notion of looking in the mirror saying, you sent you here. So now what about that? Did we plan our lives? Did we choose this specific time? Did we know we'd be going through this transition?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's all scripted. It's like a movie. And I started talking like we're talking right now. I started talking 10 years ago like this, and nobody was having it. And, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years ago, all of a sudden COVID was here, and Shaman Oaks called me up and recorded my thing, and a few other people. And then, my thing was all along, it was like, okay, I'm going to go with the flow. There is a script. There is an order to this place. And the world is in good hands. It's giving you the adventure you signed up for, you agreed to. And go out and have fun with the adventure and see how high you can score when it's all over.
Good. And, I love the transition you're referring to. 10 years ago, people weren't buying it. And I think the lockdown, during that COVID time is what woke a lot of people up. And I love how you mentioned Shaman Oaks called you. You guys recorded about like a 16.5-minute video, and I think it's got 13 million views. It was crazy. So that is like, wow, that just helped explode the awakening that people are having to, wait a minute, they're questioning this thing that they had assumed was correct and real and truthful, and they're finding out a lot of other information, and I think it's raising their frequency. So you imagine when that collective frequency just magnifies and all accumulates and aggregates together, there could be some profound changes on this earthly plane. Can't wait to see. And one other thing I would ask you is, in other interviews, you've mentioned playing in bands. Are you a musician?
Yeah, I was a drummer. When I came back from my NDE, a lot of changes were happening. I was having vibrations in my spine, and this Kundalini energy had woken up, and it was moving. And it was slowly, I was becoming sort of autistic. I was counting all the time and grouping numbers, and that became music. I could hear this intelligence in music, purposeful. And I don't know, I was in my 40s. I bought some drums. My wife is like, what? She goes, you don't know what you're doing. And I said, well, this is something, it was like Richard Dreyfuss in the movie, what is it? something of the third kind.
Oh, Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
Close encounter, yeah. You're just, this seed has been planted, and it over the years, it was coming forward, and he's building a mountain in his house, and he's going crazy, and that was me. I was losing my friends, and my wife was wondering, what is wrong with you? And and the drumming was part of that. It was just kind of fanatical about learning to play the drums, and I got really good really fast, and was in a bunch of bands, got paid, and I was in my 40s and 50s at the time. So the interesting thing about that is the first song that I started playing, because it was easy. It's a song called "Swinging" by Tom Petty, and the song came out in the late 90s, but the video came out in 2012. And if you really want to know what is going on here, our whole story is right there in that video. It's called "Swinging." It's a music video, Tom Petty. And it shows this woman, she's having all these troubles and stuff, and then one day she looks up and she sees herself looking down at her. And, she's this higher self, and she's here having these adventures, and our higher self, who is us, is learning from the experiences. So So anyway, yeah, that was the first song I learned to play, and I played it hundreds of times, recorded it, just like Richard Dreyfuss. I had this weird thing. I was stuck with this song, and then when the video came out in 2012, I was like, whoa, this is all lined out.
I love it. So do you still play now?
Yeah, we got a gig planned in a few months. It's a reunion for fire department stuff. So we played at wineries and breweries, and a lot of people are drunk, and slowly I couldn't be around that, and I kind of phased out from it, even though I love jamming with my buddies and stuff.
Well, I can totally relate. I started playing drums in the fourth grade. Had several acoustic sets, had been in every band you can imagine, and
Right.
traded in the acoustic for an electronic drum kit because the kids are growing up and you can play that without waking the neighbors.
Right.
And I have played it my entire life, and I love it. But I agree with you. I think when I was younger, I didn't mind the drunk people kind of at the weddings and various things like that. But that really isn't the vibe. What's interesting is it is the music and the frequency and how it makes you feel that's the most amazing thing. And just like you say, even in the basement or in the garage with the band members, can give you all of that. So that's very cool. Well, hey, speaking of that, I have this special segment that I have here called Heart's First Whisper. And in this, I have questions that I have reconfigured for you ahead of time. And the idea is you use your heart to respond to these. You don't need your mind or your thoughts at all. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds wonderful.
Excellent. All right, here we go. First question is, what did your experience teach you about the true nature of identity of Bill?
That it's a temporary gig, and it's kind of an illusion. It's a gift. And don't take it too seriously. Have fun. Go through the lessons that you came here to learn, and step back and say, what did I set myself up for here? Where is the high road?
Yes. Now, what about when your wife yells Bill? You answer, right? So you still know that somehow you're in this meat suit that's called Bill, and that's you inside there. You're operating this vehicle, right? You don't lose sight of that, and yet you still remember what you experienced on the other side.
Yeah, this thing, Kundalini, it continues to rise. And I know it's a huge subject in itself, but it moves through the chakras, and it moves out all of this baggage, this trauma, emotional trauma. It's all feelings. That's what we're about when we're not here. And as that rises, you eventually it moves up to the crown chakra, and then there is this reunion with the divine mind, which is the right hemisphere of your brain. it gets in sync, hemisync, this synced up hemispheres. It gets in sync with the left side of your brain, which is Bill, and the right side is connected to eternal Bill and eternal everyone. And so when you said the Bill's identity, my wife says, "Hey, Bill, there's a whole bunch of people listening," and you get sort of this, I don't know, it's like a group thing that says, okay, how can we make her the happiest? And it's really weird because I'm completely different than what I was in my 30s. I stop and I think, how can I get through this the best? And for everyone else, selfless.
So that's great because you're being of service to others. And that's kind of like it reflects that notion of unconditional love and bringing joy to others, which will bring joy to you as well. That one thing you said there is interesting. I really hadn't heard it put that way. The left hemisphere is connected to the physical identity and the right hand, right? And then the right hemisphere is connected to the artistic side, the analytic side, artistic side, but that side, artistic, is connected to the higher self and then all that is associated with that. And then it's funny because if you actually look at the hemispheres of the brain, there isn't much connecting them together, is there?
No, but they're separate. But with this Kundalini thing, they become one. They get synchronized, and you can move through life thinking from your higher mind, which means you don't react to this place because you're aware that you're aware of the circumstances of that you're playing a part. It's temporary, and don't screw it up.
So do you know that because you went to the other side and that information was shared with you, or have you gone through the Kundalini merging of hemispheres?
I've definitely gone through that, and I don't think I have too many interviews left in me because I'm getting so joyful, so happy that this happiness, psych wards are full of super happy people, and this is that is what it they say that somebody's gonna, when I was a kid, they'd say somebody's gonna call the good humor truck to come take this fellow to the funny farm, and that is the human form cannot contain the happiness, the joy of the divine side. And it does lead to this, health problems and stuff. And you said something cool. You said that the left brain's connected to the right hand. And the right brain, which is, connected to the divine, that's coming through the left side. And this Kundalini syndrome, it's like you're disabled. Over the years, you'll have neck problems, everything on the left side, connecting down to earth. You'll have problems with your arm, your ribs on your left side. Right now, it's in my hip and my knee. It's something that moves. And it's incredible pain and burning. It's a well-documented physical symptoms of this divine energy reconnecting with us. It's such a good story. I'm glad you're talking about it because it's what awaits all of us.
Well, let me ask, are you left-handed?
I am left-handed.
So am I. Crazy. I didn't know you were a drummer. I didn't know you were left-handed. So that is, and I had not heard this before. If your frequency is rising so much that your right hemisphere, which is connected to your higher self, it goes continually higher, it affects the left side of your body until one day you're going to leave the body and
Right.
You'll go off. Now, there was an intermediate stop you mentioned. You might go to the funny farm on the way, but let's hope not. But then now, as many NDers do, where you're going, when this body is done.
Yeah, without a question. And the you said that thing that as the frequency rises, there's this thing of the 144,000, very biblical, and this whole thing about what's that called when you people. I was in a church when I was in college. A guy took me to a church, and they were doing training for this. They were jumping into the air. What is that called? That return. It's this. Well, anyway, that if you count the petals on the chakras, you start at because everything's math. You start adding them up as you move up the spine from the base chakra, the root chakra. This adds up once you get up to the third eye, and then you go to the 1,000-petal chakra, which is connection to home. That's you multiply that 144 by 1,000, and you get the 144,000. And this guy Robert Edward Grant, he's got a podcast. He's a math wizard, and he knows about these things. This is ancient knowledge that everything is, frequency, and it's all math. And this 144,000 thing, that is a frequency.
Right. Yes. No, I'm very familiar with him. And he also, I would imagine, mentions that 1 + 4 + 4 = 9, So another magic number. Well, I tell you, that takes us really into our next question, number 2, which is, what does home mean to you now?
Home to me is a vibration. It's a vibration of love and selflessness and giving and joyfulness and happiness. That's home. And you can have, when I had my NDE, I was home, but I realized you can have that here on earth. You can manifest it.
Yeah, I like that because, oftentimes when people have an NDE, they say, well, the home is on the other side. It's not here. But I like what you're saying. It's like, no, it's wherever you are. If you raise your frequency and your focus on the higher frequencies, on the love, on the compassion, on the service to others, whatever it takes, bring that like a turtle, bring home with you, like a motor home, I guess, right? Just bring it with you wherever you are.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds, hokey and stuff, but it's absolutely real. Long as you're not reacting and long as it's not selfish, there is nothing you can't do.
Oh, yeah. I love that. Well, you talk about your NDE, and it's interesting the shift you went through because, you started off with an NDE and shared it up front, and then you kind of shut it down for 15 years. And I guess you were waiting for the world to catch up, and then you started sharing again.
Yeah, there was a moment right after I retired where this video showed up with called DMT, the Spirit Molecule, by Dr. Rick Strassman. And I watched it, and I was a fire captain. I didn't watch drug movies, but I watched it, and then I really liked Rick Strassman. I don't know why. I guess because he seemed so genuine. And then, so I ordered the book when that suggestion showed up on my computer. And when I read the book, I got to chapter 13 or 14, which is called Contact Through the Veil. And he was, he had 100 or so volunteers he was giving high dose DMT, and they were going to a clinical situation. They were leaving their body. They were seeing these joyful little elves, munchkins. They were seeing a taller, wispy guy that seemed to be in charge, and one testimony after another. And I was like, wait a minute. This is my story that everybody has, thrown dirt on for the last 15 years. And here it is right here in print. And that really shocked me. And so I thought, this DMT thing, the natural way to get DMT is ayahuasca. And so I started going to Costa Rica, and I was mostly screwing around. But if somebody said, hey, there's this really cool shaman, he's from Colombia and lives in the Amazon, and he's totally legit, and I'd say, yeah, I'm down for that. There's something about this DMT. It's like it's a doorway or a portal. And I went there when I nearly died, but this DMT can, by drinking it or whatever kids do today, smoke it. Again, I don't recommend it at all, But so anyway, I tried it a few times, and it was a similar experience, not the same blissful thing at all. I mean, because you're being yanked out of your body, and you're going into a room you weren't invited into. Alex Ferrara put it that way, and that was absolutely a perfect description. You're going into a room you weren't invited into. You might not be ready for what you're going to see, and this is all hinged on raising your vibration, and then the divine side starts to open naturally, and you can do that through meditation and a commitment to good life, ethics, honesty, and that's what we're doing here. We're being processed to be good souls, and it takes thousands of lives. But the DMT is a shortcut, and people who have really scary situations on that, it's completely understandable because you weren't ready to see that.
Yeah, it's like you're not invited to the party, so you're kind of a wedding crasher. And you might think you're going for a good experience, but once they figure out who you are, they'll probably toss you out of there. Who knows if it's going to end the way you thought. So it's interesting, that you've had the NDE and then you did the ayahuasca a couple times after that to compare them. There's probably pretty few numbers of folks that can kind of compare an NDE with ayahuasca, or maybe an out-of-body experience even without the ayahuasca, and then really compare and contrast and so forth. But I do like where you're going with this, the notion of gradually raising your frequency, dealing with meditation, and really is that spiritual awakening that can get you there in a more graduate, and that'll get you invited to the wedding. And when that happens, then you'll have a great experience, and you'll be, the folks there will, treat you like you're supposed to be there, which is probably a better thing. That's pretty cool. I like that. And so, knowing all of this, though, I think it brings us into number 4, which is, what would you say to someone grieving the loss of a loved one?
This is a very well done illusion. It's a very well done movie or play, and we've taken on these wonderful costumes, but nobody died. They're on the other side waiting for us. They're watching us, cheering for us, never judging. And there's nothing, to be grieving about. There's this thing called the afterlife party. And my mom, she's been gone a few years now, but, I was going through all of my stuff, and she was getting ready to end her time here. And she had been psychic her whole life, a lot of problems. She was institutionalized as a child and electroshocked and all this. And, my grandmother was the same way. These things run in families, this ability to see things. And but near the end of her life, she would, every morning she'd call me and she'd say, I was at this party. It was like Disneyland. The trees had lights in them, or everyone was there, and all my brothers and sisters, and they're all so loving. And every time she'd look at me, she said, why do I have to come back here? And I go, well, when you're ready to stay, Mom, you can stay. Just play your cards right. And that's how it went. And one of the funniest things was she used to see her mom and dad in her room. They're all around her. Your family's all around her all the time. And she would go get them coffee early in the morning, and all the nurses would keep me apprised on how things were going with her. And she'd be talking to her mom and dad. And one day when I came by, she said, she goes, you're crazy enough to be able to answer this. And she said, when they leave, my mom and dad, they turn into somebody else. They look differently. And what do you make of that? And it's like they were an imposter, while they were here. And I said, Mom, they're showing you that they are eternal souls on the other side, like you. and that they were your mom and dad while they were here. But there's so much more, like Mary Neal talks about. There's so much more, thousands of lifetimes together, and they're there waiting for you. And they're trying to make your transition easy by showing you these things.
So when you talk to people that are really in the thick of that, someone is dying or has passed already, these are the words to share and if they hold on to those words and they feel that and they find some sort of connection, oh, it can be so much better than the stories that we're processing in their head before this.
Right.
And, I'll ask you one question. When you say the other side, it's very common, I sort of use that all the time also. But then at the same time, we talk about the spirits that are right here with us and around us. And maybe with our limited sensory vision and hearing and various things, we just can't sense them, but they are around us all the time. So are they on the other side, or are we all together all the time and we just have different abilities to sense each other?
I think they're available all the time. They have other things that they're involved in on the other side. So I don't think they're around us all the time. I remember this lady saying that her mom came back and said, "Look, I've got a life. You're going to have to get over me." And she was cool after that. And so, yeah, I think that's true. I've seen my dad a couple times. I've seen my mom a lot. But my dad was very outgoing, and he loved life. He was a sweetheart. So he's, flying the universe, having all kinds of fun, and stops in when, I need some help or something. But
how is it that you see your dad or your mom as many times as you have?
This afterlife party thing, the reason I bring it up is because it's so absolutely real. When I, if I sleeping at night, I never sleep well. I'm always off at festivals or classes or projects. We all are. We just don't remember it when we come back. We all soul travel, and we've got all kinds of things. But I would remember being at these afterlife parties after my mom passed. It was some months after was the first one, and my dad was there, and it was tuxedos and incredible banquet lights, chandeliers. It was an incredible setting, and I was like, "Dad, oh, dude, I love you so much. You're looking great." And I could feel him. I could just like hear. And I go, "What are you doing? I never see you," And it was this big party, lots of people stopping by, slapping you on the back, and it just incredible. Nothing phony about it. Absolute authentic love for each other. And then my mom walked in the room, and there was a big loud thing of praise of she's here, and she was holding some flowers, and she looked so happy walking into this banquet room, and I'm like, "Oh, there's Mom." And I started heading over there, and my dad goes, hey, hang back. They're honoring her. And I get emotional. But she kind of paraded through this thing and, was smiling at everybody. And it's amazing. There's nothing to worry about.
Wow, you really get connected. It's the answers that you provided there really come right into this next question of number 5, which is the word love. On the other side, you probably feel it entirely. Here we have a word that represents it, but what has love come to mean to you after your experience?
All there is love. The universe is love and joy and happiness and chuckling and giggling. And you can see it in movies everywhere. We come here to experience the exact opposite. And through our own choices, to graduate, to raise our vibration, to earn our wings. These clues are everywhere. And we vibrate out of this place when we prove that the processing is working on us. We're fruit that's ripening on a tree, and we get to go home.
Wow, I don't know if you've heard of these escape room games where people go to a room and they have to figure out the clues to get out of there. It kind of feels like we're living in the escape room, you know?
That's very good. That's really good.
If you're, I guess, angry and ornery, you might even be done with this physical manifestation, but you might be coming back to remanifest to give it another go. But eventually, I would imagine you'd figure out the clues, and then you would realize the key to the exit is, high frequency love and so on. Well, when you do finally exit, you probably have to go through a pretty serious transition. So number 6 is, what do you believe happens to us in the moments right after death?
I think the same thing happens to us that happens every night when we go to sleep and we go into REM sleep, and our pineal gland activates and a little drop of DMT drops on our brain and we exit and we soul travel. So when I go to bed at night, I find myself out of my body, and if I have a pizza with sausage and salami and some really low vibration food, I'm held there, and there's a lot of creepy things that are there. It's the valley of the shadow of death. We have to navigate that valley by our vibration. So I've realized, if I don't eat properly, it's like somebody sits on me spiritually, energetically. It's like I'm held there, and it's not where I want to be. I want to be in those marble columns, watching a lecture with all my friends, or at some sort of music festival, like it's like Burning Man, with all kinds of bizarre beings, very sensual and very unusual, and all of them friendly and loving. That's where you want to go. So yeah, I believe that there is a valley of the shadow of death. We're held here in Earth. We're kind of sequestered, quarantined. That's where these emotions are, allowed to run wild, and we don't usually let the system down. We wars and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, we want to break through the energy that's holding us here, and we do that by raising our vibes. We don't need anybody. We don't need religion. We don't need some guru or something. You certainly don't need me. You just step up your game and be nice, and we learn to navigate that place right after death, and we move quickly, through it, unless we're carrying some low vibes. Then we're going to be stuck.
You say people don't need you, and it isn't that they need years of instruction. I think just a few simple words that you share that they just hadn't considered before kind of cracks a door or a window open, and more light comes in. And maybe those are the things that, when they accumulate and aggregate together, that really brings them up potentially what you could refer to as another level. So they might change the food that they eat, clean up their environment around them. And then maybe when they do get a good night's sleep and they go and get rest and their pineal gland fires and the drop of DMT fires in there, they can go off and go to the party on the other side and get a little glimpse into it, which would reinforce the notion of eating better and living better and helping others and so on and so on. It seems like a nice little loop that you've got yourself into.
Yeah, I'll retract that statement. People do need you, and the ideas that you bring together, because that is you got it down.
Well, thank you for co-creating with me today, because you've got it down, and that's why we're here together. And that brings us to 7, which is this truth that you found, how do you personally stay connected to the truth of what you saw in this challenging environment? I think you mentioned this earlier. The folks that do have challenges over here when they come back, going like, I don't want to be here, and maybe they don't realize they created this and they had a life blueprint and it was for a reason. And when they come back, they don't, and they're told they have work to do. They're not sure what that work is to do.
I had my ayahuasca time, and that was 2012 or 13. And then I fell in love with this village down in Costa Rica. And it was in a blue zone, which is a super nature place where this isn't anything I planned. I just realized I was there. It was Guanacaste, the Nicoya Peninsula down in Costa Rica. And I lived like them. I drank water that was running along Mother Earth, and there was silence. The whole village would go into silence for a week or two at a time. And they grew all their food. It was all organic, and it was fresh vegetables and nuts and leafy greens and things. And I got away as much as I could for weeks or months at a time. And on one of those trips, something opened, and this Kundalini energy woke up. It was absolutely ridiculous. I started seeing other people's lives show up on their faces. Energy, I could see energy coming from down through this meditation hall, like strings on a puppet. They would go right down into people's heads, these streams of light, which is this puppet master. You hear this story that, we are a sort of a avatar that we're playing with and enjoying this adventure here. Anyway, I saw all these things, energy in the sky. And I sat looking at the stars as, we were sleeping in a group, and I looked at the stars and I said, I can never thank you for showing me so much. And whatever I had planned, my schedule is clear. I work for you guys, and you just let me know what you need, and I'll do it. And this whole star thing happened, and energy went right through me, through my forehead, down my spine. And that's what that movie Phenomena is about with John Travolta. That is a Kundalini awakening. It's not believable. It is a real divine intervention in our physical world. And it was exactly like that. It just goes right through you. And after that, I was like, I work for you guys. And my biggest struggle has been to try to read the room, try to stay in the order. This is a movie, this is a script, and things are going to play out in the order that they need to be played out. That's what the Matrix is telling us. There's an order to things. And so that's been the biggest challenge, is how much to say, how much to keep to myself. But every time somebody asks me to talk, I come on these podcasts and I share whatever seems to be acceptable. And it's worked so far. And it's helping people, and it's helping this process that's going on. I really know that. And as far as me staying connected to this life, I see it as an absolute honor to live this life and to contribute, just like you and all my brothers and sisters, NDEers and out-of-bodyers. We're all contributing in these times. It's incredibly exciting.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And you're right, the times are exploding with this. Yeah, and it seems like, there's a lot of chaos in the world that's distracting people away. And to try to get their attention a little bit, like we were talking about, and get a little light inside to warm them up to these ideas is very helpful. it also feels like to remove those distractions is real useful. Now, you said when you were in Costa Rica, you were doing a lot of meditation and in silence in those villages for weeks is amazing. Wow. I've done a silent retreat for a day once. It was very powerful, just a day. So I would ask you question 8 now. What role does silence and stillness play in your daily life now?
That is my daily life. I live here in a cabin in the woods, and surrounded by water. There's ponds, and so that's nothing but wildlife. The geese bring their young by, and the deer sleep right outside. And I have a bed on the deck there, and so I fall asleep under the stars. And there's wildlife all around. And I wake up before sunrise, and I face the east. And I do some of the things Robert Grant talks about with the diamond meditation type thing, and I drink structured water. And so, yeah, my life is full of silence and stillness, and that's why I think I seem so happy.
You definitely do. And thank you for giving away some of your trade secrets on how you're achieving that happiness. And it's interesting because you've been on the other side and on this side, as we've talked about, and you're able to honor this physical life that you have here, even though it's temporary. Kind of brings us into our final question, number 9, which is, if this entire life is some kind of illusion, what matters most within it?
Your choices. What is your choice in every moment? Not just what you project to the physical world, but what are you thinking? What words are you, are part of your dialogue, internal dialogue. People have lots of problems, and are you focusing on them, or are you seeing the goodness that's in everybody?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I love when you say, look inside you. Often too many people are unhappy with their experiences, and they're always trying to fix something outside themselves, when if they go inside, the only change you can, instill in anything is that you can instill in yourself. So I think that's a great message.
I think that is the message that's coming. You said that after COVID, we were all sort of sequestered and forced to be still. And I think, in the next 6 months, a year, 2 years, there's going to be, everything that we're based on, everything that we believe, history and science and religion and mainstream, all this mainstream media stuff, I think it's all going to get very confusing. And all you need to do is go inward and find that silence and find that eternal voice that is you, that, quiet the mind and the soul can speak.
Beautiful. Now, I was just going to ask you if you had any last thoughts as we wind up the podcast to share with folks, but that was a pretty darn good one right there. You might have another one.
I do. Thanks for the opportunity. I mentioned The Wizard of Oz. This is a great closer. I mentioned The Wizard of Oz, and I talked about Dorothy and the Munchkins and everything. But we're all here. We're on our personal journeys, our personal challenges, and Dorothy was put on the yellow brick road by her higher self, Glinda, and she was given a scarecrow looking for a brain, and a tin man looking for a heart, and a lion looking for courage. And the message I get clearly from that whole group is that when you get control of your thoughts, of your brain, and connect to that right brain that is connected to the divine, and make all of your decisions from the intelligence of the heart, then and proceed with courage, without fear, because fear holds us here, then we get to go home. And there's no place like home.
That is perfect. That is amazing. I mean, if you could fit that on a bumper sticker, that'd be great on the back of the car. It's funny because we are both left-handed. I'm wondering if we have some slight advantage to that right brain connectivity. I'm not sure.
I bet we do, and I bet that'll come out as we reinvent our place here, intellectually. That's what's coming in the future.
I love it. We are doing just that. And thank you for joining me today to talk through these topics to help people along the way. I'd say thank you, for being so open and real with us today. Your story is not only fascinating, it's like a wake-up call for all of us to remember who we truly are beneath the noise of the world. How can viewers connect with you beyond today? Because I know they'll have so much more.
Yeah, I'm out there. I'm at bletson56@gmail.com. And yeah, I get calls every day and I get emails. And yeah, give me a call.
All right, cool. So you don't really have a website people would go to. It's an email, a Gmail address. Thank you. We'll share all that. So if you do have questions, comments, feedbacks, leave them here on the podcast, and then you can go straight to Bill yourself as well. I love it. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Brad. This was awesome. And my last statement is it is time to remember.
It is time to remember, and I have sort of kind of faith and hope and the notion that folks that are watching things like this, especially all the way to the end like this, are those that want to remember. Maybe they're already partially remembering and they just want more support and reinforcement. And I think that's what this is for. I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. Thank you.
All right. Well, hey, if this conversation touched something in you, consider spending a little time in silence today, away from the screen and away from the to-do list. Just you and that quiet voice inside, huh? And as Bill reminded us, the power to go home has always been within us. We just have to tap our ruby red shoes together 3 times and say, there's no place like home. I think that's the idea, right, Bill?
Yeah, I think that is the idea.
And to all our listeners, if Bill's story moved you, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And let us know in the comments. I love going into the comments and communicating back and forth with you guys. Keep it up. I love that part. And if this episode spoke to your heart, share it with someone you might think needs a little light today. And until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and go beyond the illusion to discover your true self. Take care, everyone, and bye for now.
Dude, you're just what the world needs. You really are. You really are. You package it up really nice. Absolutely. You're the best, man. Thank you. This is really good. You're just a really good teacher. You're really good for the world. I mean that, all my heart.
Well, thank you much.